So the India versus South Africa Test series, and in fact, by extension, the entire tour that India have had of the South African nation, well, it's done and dusted. You've had a T20I series, you've had an ODI series, and now at long last, the Test series is done and dusted as well. And you know what that means? It means that the home side of India's cricket resumes. You have a T20I series against Afghanistan, you've got 5 tests against England. Thereafter, you've got the IPL, and before you realize it, it's World Cup season once again. But all of that is for the future. The right here and right now that we will focus on is, of course, the Test series that has been recently concluded. And I think it's fair to say this was one of the more entertaining 2 Test series that you've had in recent memory. First Test, India were done in about 3 days' time. They bounced back with a vengeance, winning the second Test in under 2 days' time. You were really wishing, hoping, praying for a third Test. There is no third Test. 1-1 is how the series will end. But of course, that's just a very basic overview of things. There are, of course, plenty of talking points that you could be talking about that, India have learned, or the things that might need addressing in the not so distant future as far as the squad composition or, multiple other things are concerned. So in this video, what we're going to do is we'll talk about the 5 major talking points from this India versus South Africa series, and we'll start with the first one, an unconquered final frontier. Now, it might seem a little harsh talking about the fact that, after in the aftermath of such a glorious victory that you've had, I mean, you've only gone and become the first Asian team to win in Cape Town. Newlands is not a venue that South Africa lose often, and before this, India's venue at Newlands did not make for good reading. 6 tests, you had lost 4 and drawn 2. So to say that anyone was hopeful of getting a win in this match would perhaps be stretching things just a little. But you got that win. You ensure you got some World Test Championship points. But the main objective of this tour, finally being able to win a Test series in South Africa, it remains unfinished. Now, you can talk about the fact that, India traditionally always are slow starters when it comes to Sena Nations. That came back to bite them. They couldn't win the first Test. And then once it reached the second Test, in fact, having a tasted defeat, they knew that their hopes of a final frontier conquering win was done. The best they could do, which is what they did, was level the series and take nothing away from the fact that it was a very good win. But it also means that now you're going to have to wait just that little bit longer to finally be able to say that yes, this Indian Test team has won a Test series in South Africa. That's not happened yet, and this is, by the way, against the South Africa side, who themselves are very patchwork. So this was arguably India's best chance to do it. That they couldn't tells you a lot. But the positive side really from this win, on the win in Newlands, Rohit Sharma's captaincy gets a little bit of a lifeline. Now, let's make no bones about the fact that Rohit Sharma, when he was named Test captain, or for that matter, Indian captain, was never being seen as a long-term format. He was seen as the emergency form, option, you can say, because again, Kohli's stepping down from T20Is, then ODIs, then Tests was unexpected. Yes, they had some idea about, the T20Is and the ODIs, but Tests totally unexpected. So when you had to bring Rohit in, you knew that there was not going to be much time for a long-term build. It was about stability and instant results, preferably both coming at the same time. Hasn't necessarily been the case, particularly when you look at India's record in overseas tests. Ever since that time, really, since the time Kohli stepped down as captain, has been patchy, especially when you're looking at overseas and Sena Nations. However, Rohit ended up winning a Test, and in the process, not only did he win a Test in South Africa, breach that fortress known as Cape Town, he's also only the 2nd ever Test captain in the history of Indian cricket to have drawn a series in South Africa. That counts for something. And it also means that with Rohit, yes, he may have missed out on being able to lead India to World Cup glory, but with the WTC final coming in 2025, that has to be the ultimate aim. You need to be looking towards that and then saying that, we need to win this particular trophy. We don't know what the situation will be like for the 2024 World Cup or the 2025 Champions Trophy, but World Test Championship should be a target, especially when you realize that in the first 2 editions you made the final but fallen short at the final hurdle very, very agonizingly. So whilst the series wasn't an ideal one for Rohit Sharma, him getting that Cape Town win means that at least for now there is still life in his captaincy tenure, and there won't be too many people calling for his head. Give it a little bit of time, but for now at least he's kept all of them at bay. Point number 3, when we're looking at, and this is where we get into a little bit more on the squad side. Batting, well, the batting which you're looking at in this particular series, you can say it's very much still a transitionary batting. I mean, yeah, you've gotten a Yashasvi Jaiswal to open the innings alongside, Rohit Sharma. In the middle order, you've got a Shubman Gill at number 3, who's never really played there. Most of his knocks prior to the West Indies series came as an opener. You've got a Shreyas Iyer at 5, who, despite getting runs at home, it has been seen as someone who would struggle away from home. That's exactly what's happened. So this batting lineup, I mean, these 3 are guys who would be seen as long-term options, guys who would be around for at least 5, 6, if not 10 years. Well, there does seem to be a bit of an issue because, again, Jaiswal, aside from that last innings in Cape Town, didn't really look like he was comfortable in the test this thing. This is not to say he has technical deficiencies, nothing like that. Just didn't get the kind of runs that you would expect a player of his talent and application to get. Shubman Gill too has been in a bit of a lean patch in recent times, probably not helped in Test cricket by the fact that he's playing a new role in number 3. He played prior to that always as an opener. Now in the middle order, it's a different role. Shreyas, the short ball problem continues to haunt him. You can see very clearly, even in that that 4th innings of the second test, he looked very uncomfortable when Jansen was kind of ramping up the bouncers. So, this is still very much a work in progress batting side. Yes, you've got a Rohit, you've got a Kohli, you've got a KL Rahul who bounced back into form. But beyond that, most of your batting does seem very transitionary, and it's perhaps going to take a little bit more time for them to bear a more settled look as far as them being a cohesive test unit is concerned. Same can in many ways be said about the bowling, but in a different way. Now let's be very clear. The one reason that India ended up emerging victorious at Cape Town was because of their bowling. It required some magic from Siraj in the first innings and from Bumrah in the second innings to ensure that you got away with a win. But one of India's big problems has been depth in recent times, and depth in the bowling lineup is pretty lacking. Mukesh is very much a late bloomer, someone who only rose to prominence in the last Ranji season because he played a key part in Bengal making it to the finals. Credit to him, he's looked fairly good across formats, but especially so in tests. But again, experience definitely lacking. Siraj is someone who you expect plenty from. He had a pretty poor first test, pulled things back nicely, but you do realize that you're still very reliant on a Jasprit Bumrah and a Mohammad Shami. And you look how thin India's bowling looks now that there's no Mohammad Shami. You brought in a Prasidh Krishna, didn't quite do the job as expected. In fact, was probably, if you're ranking your bowlers' performances, he probably had the worst series. And that's saying something given you've also had Shardul Thakur in the lineup. Shardul also, there remain question marks over. Yes, an all-round option, albeit a bowling one, but does his bowling or batting simply merit him being good enough to be in that lineup? You don't really know that. Probably the answer is no. He's not a great batter, neither is he a great bowler. In many ways, a little bit of a bits and pieces player, can do a bit of both, but not particularly proficient at either of them. So you do require some depth when it comes to bowling. I think now is definitely that time where you need to start looking to build that depth. Previously, you didn't really have much of an issue because you had a Bumrah, you had a Shami, you also had an Ishant Sharma, and Umesh Yadav, all of whom were reliable, solid performers. Now, Ishant seems out of the scheme of things. Same can be said about Umesh Yadav as well. So you do need to start building anew. You need to add to your depth because, again, a Shami is not going to be around forever. There are question marks over how long Bumrah will play tests. Siraj realistically seems to be the only one who'd be a long-term option. You need bench strength, simple as that, or you're going to struggle abroad as you did in the earlier years. Number 5, and this one is also something that has been a little bit of a concern. Your overall bench strength probably isn't as good as it should be. Now, this isn't a criticism, but even if you look at this particular test, if India wanted to make tactical tweaks, there really weren't that many big players or instant impact, game-changing players who they could call upon. Their bench comprised of the likes of, there was a Shardul Thakur who missed out on this test due to combination reasons. Mukesh came in for him. Beyond that, you have an R. Ashwin who didn't really do much in the first test, and again, question marks over how effective he'd be overseas anyway. As far as the batting goes, say for instance, you knew beforehand that the Newlands pitch was going to play very bowler friendly, and you said, okay, you know what, rather than have 5 bowling options with one of them being an all-rounder, you can go with 4 bowling options. I mean, you didn't really need a spinner at Newlands, right? So you could have gone with 4 bowling options, maybe replaced Jadeja with another batter. But who would that batter be? Your only options were Abhimanyu Iswaran, uncapped, unproven at this level, and KS Bharat, someone who, despite showing all the, let's say, traits of a gritty player, not quite set the international stage on fire as far as Test cricket is concerned. So again, it doesn't augur well that you don't have options. I mean, what happens if a KL Rahul gets injured? Right now, you don't have a Rishabh Pant. Does KS Bharat come in? He's been underwhelming. If a Jadeja gets injured, is Ashwin going to be able to guarantee you the same effectiveness that a Jadeja does? With the ball, you could argue he's a better option. With the bat and in the field, not so much. So depth, definitely an issue that the Indian team needs to look at, not just as far as the bowling, but even overall bench strength. Definitely there's a lot of change that needs to be brought in, because again, if you want to be challenging for Test honours, you need to ensure that your squad depth is good. One of the reasons India pulled off that win, that series win in the 2020-21 series down under in Australia, was because they had good bench options to step up. Now you're struggling to find good bench options. It's a good learning to have from the South Africa series, and one would hope they figure that out and start blooding more youngsters for the future to ensure that they're ready for Test match cricket. And that's it. These are the 5 major talking points from this series. If you agree with it, disagree with it, you can let us know that in the comments. And don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap that bell icon, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Don't forget to download the Sports app. And if you're already on the channel, go ahead, check out some other videos we've done as well. For now though, from my side, it's goodbye.